I used to sleep in the front seat of a beat-up Ford with my 10-year-old son beside me. No job, no home, just shame, fear, and a car that barely ran. Today, I own 3 auto repair shops, employ a dozen people, and just drop my kid off at college. This isn't a fairy tale. It's the truth. And I'm going to tell you exactly how I went from rock bottom to real stability, step by step. I'm 42 now. Back then I was just a regular guy in Ohio. Worked as a mechanic since I was a teenager. Nothing fancy, just turning wrenches and bringing home a paycheck. I liked the work. It was honest. It made sense. I wasn't chasing anything big, just trying to take care of my family. Then one day, the owner of the shop gathered us up, said the business couldn't keep going, and that was it. No warning, no severance, nothing. Just a handshake and an apology. I walked out with a toolbox and no idea what to do next. I had a mortgage, bills, a 10-year-old son, and no backup plan. Losing the job was a gut punch, but I thought we'd figure it out. I came home that day, thinking I'd break the news. We'd talk it through. Instead, the apartment was half empty. My wife had packed up and left. She left a note, said she couldn't live like this anymore. Took whatever money we had, drained the joint account. I didn't even know she was planning it. I walked into a quiet living room, toys missing, closet half empty. My son sat there on the couch, confused. I didn't have answers. All I had was 2 weeks to leave. We'd already been served eviction papers. It didn't feel real at first. One day, I was fixing brakes in a shop. The next, I was folding down the back seat of my old Dodge so my kid could lie down. We parked behind a grocery store, one of those spots with just enough darkness to feel hidden. He fell asleep fast. I didn't. I sat there all night, hands on the wheel, staring into nothing. Every noise felt like a threat. I kept checking the rearview mirror. That night, something broke in me. Or maybe it woke up. All I knew was this. I'd hit bottom. And I wasn't going to let my son stay there with me. You don't realize how heavy shame can be until your own kid offers you half his sandwich, thinking maybe you're just not hungry. The truth was, I hadn't eaten in 2 days. Every dollar had to stretch. I tried to keep up the routine, clean shirt, combed hair, like we were just camping or something. But every time I saw his face, I felt smaller. I was angry, mostly at myself. I had no idea how I'd let things get this bad. At night, the car smelled like sweat, old takeout, and gasoline from the jerry can in the trunk. It was a daily reminder of how far we'd fallen. I didn't have a plan, but I had one promise. I looked at my son, asleep, with a hoodie pulled over his face, and told myself, he's not growing up in the back seat of a car. I'd take any job. I'd fix bikes, sweep floors, dig ditches. I didn't care. I couldn't give him a home, not yet, but I could give him a father who didn't give up. I whispered it out loud some nights. This won't be his story. Maybe I didn't know what came next, but I knew what couldn't stay the same. That promise became my anchor, my fuel. When you've got nothing left, you realize quick what you do still have. And for me, it was my hands. I'd been fixing cars my whole life, so I started walking up to people in parking lots, grocery stores, gas stations, you name it, and asked if they needed any work done. Oil changes, brake pads, battery swaps. Some folks looked at me like I was crazy. Some just said no. But a few gave me a chance. Sometimes they paid, sometimes they didn't. But I always showed up. I had a little toolbox, a beat-up jack, and a notebook full of scribbled phone numbers. It wasn't much, but it was the first step toward something I could control. One night at a truck stop, I saw this teenager filming himself under the hood of a souped-up Civic. Something about it clicked. I didn't need money to market, just a phone. So I created an Instagram account and started posting short videos. Nothing fancy, just me changing brake pads, cleaning sensors, showing people simple fixes. I didn't care about likes. I cared about staying visible. At first, it was crickets. But I kept at it. Every post was like throwing a hook in the water. Eventually, one of them bit, then another. I wasn't trying to go viral. I was trying to survive. I still remember the message. A guy said his car made a rattling noise when he turned left. Told him I'd take a look. Drove over, tools in the trunk. Turned out it was a loose sway bar. I tightened it up, charged him $40, and before I left, he asked if he could leave a review on my Instagram. I said sure. He posted a short clip, tagged me, and a few days later, another guy reached out. That second job led to a third, and then a fourth. That's when it hit me. This might actually work. It wasn't just about turning wrenches anymore. It was about building trust. We were still sleeping in the car, still showering at gyms, eating dollar meals, watching the gas tank like it was a countdown clock. But something had shifted. I wasn't just waiting for the next disaster. I was working. I had clients, even if it was just 2 or 3 a week. People were tagging me, messaging me, asking for help. I'd write down jobs in a spiral notebook and map out routes to save fuel. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me something I hadn't felt in months: direction. I wasn't just trying to survive anymore. I was chasing something. And it felt good. At night, after my son fell asleep in the back seat, I'd prop my phone on the dashboard and watch YouTube videos on running a business. I didn't know a thing about pricing or invoices or scheduling, but there were people online who did, and they were giving it away for free. I took notes, learned how to write a basic invoice, how to calculate profit after parts. I watched videos on taxes, customer service, even how to use Google Calendar. I didn't have a degree. I didn't have a mentor. But I had Wi-Fi from the parking lot and a reason to keep learning. That was enough. After a few months of slow but steady work, I started saving every spare dollar. I still had debt, but I figured I'd never climb out unless I took a risk. I went to a credit union and applied for a small personal loan, $5,000. Got approved, barely. I used it to rent this tiny one-car garage behind a laundromat. It had no signage, no heat, cracked concrete floors. But when I opened the door and saw that empty space, it felt like I'd made it. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't fixing cars in a parking lot. I had an address, a roof, a real start. There was a week where I had no parts, no clients, and no clue how I was going to keep going. I showed up to the garage, opened the roll-up door, and just sat there in the dark. Lights off because I couldn't afford the bill. The cold settled in my bones, and I started thinking maybe I'd been fooling myself. Maybe this wasn't grit. Maybe it was just stubbornness. But then I saw that little photo of my boy I'd taped to the side of my toolbox. He was smiling, holding up a toy wrench. I stared at it for a long time. Then I said out loud, "Not yet." And I got back to work, even if that meant sweeping the same floor twice just to stay moving. One thing about this kind of work, word travels fast when you treat people right. A few clients came back for second jobs. Then they started bringing their friends. Then I got a call from a bakery with a delivery van. Then a landscaping company. Next thing I knew, I was booking out a week in advance. One guy even offered to invest, said he liked what I was building. But I turned him down. I wasn't ready to hand the wheel to anyone else. I wanted to grow, but on my terms, no shortcuts, no middlemen, just honest work, done right. The same way I'd started. I was drowning in work, couldn't keep up with the calls, the repairs, the parts runs. That's when I called up Mike, a guy I used to work with back in the day. Told him I couldn't pay much, but if he was willing to help, I'd make it work. He showed up the next day. I paid him out of what should have gone to my rent. But he didn't slack. He treated every car like it was his own. Having someone to share the load made all the difference. We could handle twice the work, twice the volume. It was a risk I couldn't afford, but it turned out to be the right one. You'll never forget the day a client rolled in with 4 cars. Said he ran a small car rental outfit and didn't trust anyone else. He told me, "You're the only guy who actually listens." That moment stuck with me. Not because of the money, but because it meant something deeper, trust. I wasn't just patching things up under the hood anymore. I was building something steady, reliable. That day, I stood back and looked around my little garage. The oil-stained floor, the humming compressor, Mike working on a Civic, and I thought, this isn't a hustle anymore, this is my shop. 3 years in, the wait list had gotten too long. I was turning down work I couldn't handle, so I made another jump, emptied the account, and leased a second location across town. Bigger space, better equipment, higher rent. I hired 3 more guys and prayed I hadn't just buried myself in overhead. Those first few months were tense. Every invoice, every repair had to hit just right. But it caught on. Customers kept coming. The phone didn't stop. One Saturday, I walked into that second shop and saw all 4 bays full, and it hit me. The gamble paid off. He was 13 when he asked if he could come to the shop on weekends. I told him he didn't have to. He should be with his friends. But he said, "I want to help." He'd wipe down tools, sweep the bays, hand us sockets. Sometimes he'd just sit and watch. We talked more during those weekends than we had in the whole year before. I taught him how to check oil, how to talk to customers, how to admit when you mess something up and make it right. I wasn't just building a business anymore. I was teaching my boy what it looks like to stand up and build your own life. It was a 2-bedroom rental on a quiet street. Nothing special from the outside. Cracked driveway, squeaky door. But to us, it was a palace. First time in years, we had a real address. My son picked his room and said, "This one's mine?" like he couldn't believe it. We brought in a couple used mattresses, a folding table, and not much else. That first night, we made grilled cheese on a hot plate and watched TV on a laptop. I'll never forget the way he curled up under real blankets, smiled, and said, "This is the best." After 6 months living in a car, it felt like the world had shifted under our feet. We were home. By the time the third shop opened, I finally admitted I couldn't keep doing it all myself. I trained up Mike to manage one location, brought in a bookkeeper, and hired younger techs who knew the new systems better than I did. I still worked. I still showed up. But I wasn't grinding 90-hour weeks anymore. I started taking weekends off. I had dinner at home, watched movies with my boy, even took him fishing once. I wasn't chasing survival anymore. I was building something sustainable, something that could run without me always holding the wheel. That was new, and it felt good. I'm not driving a sports car. I don't wear a Rolex. But I make about $250,000 a year now across the 3 shops. I've got 12 employees, good people, most of them with families of their own. I wake up every day with a reason to move, but not with fear in my chest anymore. I take care of my people, my son, and myself. We've got a house now, real furniture, a dog named Rusty. I'm not rich, not in the way people flash on social media, but I've got freedom. And for a man who once slept in a sedan with a kid in the back seat, that's everything. He got a full ride. I still don't know how he pulled it off. Scholarships, grants, who knows what else. But last fall, I packed up the truck with his stuff and drove him to the dorms. He hugged me in front of the building. tight, not quick, and said, "You never quit on me, Dad." I held it together until I got back to the parking lot. Then I just sat there, crying, like I hadn't in years. Not from sadness, from pride, from relief, from the memory of every night I stared at the roof of that car and wondered if I was failing him. Turns out I wasn't. Back then, I thought success meant catching up, making enough money, getting out of the hole, proving something to the people who doubted me. But that's not it. Real success, I've learned, is being someone your kid can count on, someone they believe in, someone who keeps showing up, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. That's what I built. Not just a business, but trust, stability, a life worth living. If I could go back and tell my younger self one thing, it wouldn't be about money or business tips. It would be this: just don't give up. You're becoming someone worth being. I didn't know how to rebuild my life. I just knew I couldn't let it end like that. If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you of someone you love, or of a time when you had to claw your way forward, take a second to subscribe, like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Have you ever hit a moment where you almost gave up, but didn't? What helped you hang on? And if you want to hear another story about quiet determination, check out my last video about Jorge, a janitor who turned late-night cleaning shifts into a $350,000 business. His journey, like mine, started small, but it didn't stay that way.